Lawyers representing more than 1,000 people affected by the deadly 2017-2018 listeriosis outbreak say they have evidence linking Tiger Brands to the breakout. Now, the country's biggest food producer is being asked to take accountability and immediately settle with those affected. Tiger Brands says it's unable to comment on the pending litigation at this stage, but experts are reviewing relevant records linked to this outbreak. RSI founding director Richard Spoor joins us now for more on this. Richard, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. 6 years on now, in their statement, Tiger Brands, I suppose, pointing that this is a matter of 2018, but a matter that is receiving a degree of attention nonetheless, saying they've gotten the format of the report from the NICD and they've sent it to their insurers. Suppose the first question would be, where do you think the delay is? Is it with Tiger Brands? Is it with the insurer? Is it with the legal system that is overloaded? Where is the delay in resolving this matter?
I think it's probably unfair to attribute it all to Tiger Brands. It is the case that the insurer is playing a critical role here, and that the insurer, while it hears and listens to Tiger Brands, acts independently in what it thinks its best interest is. So the insurer is trying to minimize the cost of this claim, and it's the insurer's attorneys who are running this case on Tiger's behalf. It is also so that the legal system, as we've learned at enormous cost over the last decade or couple of decades, can be slow and can be difficult.
Yeah.
One of the reasons for the delay in this matter was an application filed by Tiger to compel laboratories around the country to disclose testing records that they had done of food products during the 2017-2018 outbreak.
Right.
And which application was opposed by the laboratories and which caused a 2-year delay in these proceedings.
Right.
So there are a number of factors that play a role here in causing the delay. But I think that the fundamental issue from the perspective of the victims of this outbreak is that Tiger Brands, regardless of the problems of the legal system, has a moral, ethical, social responsibility to take responsibility for the harm that it has done, harm that we say is established beyond any reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
And we think that they should do the right thing to minimize the suffering and the hardship that is ongoing for the victims of this outbreak and settle the matter. And Tiger to date hasn't been willing to do that.
So now, I mean, even then when we spoke to you, Richard, earlier on in the process of investigating where it could have been the source of the listeria bacteria, there was overwhelming evidence that it comes from their factories. That's why they'd closed them. That's why they'd recalled some products and so on and so forth. Why was it important that you get this latest evidence? How does it take the case forward that now we know that, is it the ST16 or is it the T16? I forget the terminology that is being used that now has been found.
Yeah. So we know from academic articles that have been published about the outbreak that genetically the bacteria found in the victims, the bacteria found in Tiger's products, and the bacteria found in the victims, that they're all identical, that they're the same bacteria. We know that from these academic journal articles, but we haven't had the evidence on which those scientists relied to draw those conclusions. That evidence in the form of very large computer files that record the sequence of the DNA of some 400 plus samples where that DNA sequence is documented has only now been made available to us by the NICD. So I suppose if you draw an analogy, previously we had a fingerprint expert that said the fingerprints on the crime scene match the fingerprints of the accused. We never had the actual fingerprint. What we have now is the actual fingerprint. And it's a very detailed fingerprint because the DNA of this Listeria bacterium comprises about 3 million pairs of little amino acids that constitute the DNA. And what they have seen is that of these, all of the samples that they've collected, they are virtually identical. And by virtually identical, I mean the differences are 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 parts in 3 million.
Yeah.
Which means that genetically, these bacteria are more closely related to each other than are identical twins, where the differences would be much larger. So we now have the concrete evidence that proves it's the same bacteria that killed and injured these people as was found in Tiger's products and as was found in Tiger's factory.
Yeah. So it was found in the factory, it was found in the products, it was found on the surfaces where the food would have been prepared. And you're saying now there's also overwhelming evidence that it was found in the systems of those who would have fallen ill and those who would have succumbed.
That is correct. It was found in the clinical samples as well.
And why, with all that kind of evidence, there is still a question of liability?
Well, our contention is, and we make this, unashamedly and without any qualification, the case against Tiger is scientifically established. It's a matter of scientific fact. What is outstanding is that a court confirms that scientific fact. It's as if our case turned on the Earth orbiting around the sun. Tiger is saying, well, maybe the Earth orbits around the sun, but until a court pronounces on that matter, we're not going to accept that as a fact. That's where we are today, where the facts are as clear as the fact that the Earth goes around the sun. It's that clear that Tiger is responsible. But until a court rules on that, and a court says, yes, indeed, the Earth does go around the sun, Tiger's position is that the case hasn't been shown, and they are denying any liability. Certainly, they are not willing to accept any responsibility. And we have a problem with that. They know, their lawyers know, their insurer knows, everybody who's involved in this case is aware that Tiger is responsible. And what we're waiting for while the court process plays out is for Tiger to do the responsible thing and accept liability. Why do we say that? Because of the enormous human suffering that is taking place. Yeah. We have over 100 children who are born with neurological deficits, brain injuries, caused by their being infected while they were in their mother's wombs and while they were being born. Yeah. These children were affected. They developed encephalitis, meningitis. They suffered brain injuries. They have special needs. They have special education needs. They have clinical needs. They need to be seen by doctors and surgeons, neurosurgeons. They need treatment. They need care. They need a whole variety of types of professional assistance, which they are not getting because they don't have the money to do it. Their parents are paying what they can afford. We heard this evening or this afternoon from one of the mothers how they've had to sell their house to pay for the care of their children. Then we have over 200 women who lost their babies as a result of an infection. Either they miscarried or they were stillbirth. Many of these women, because of the injury done to them, will never conceive again.
Sure.
These women are dealing with enormous trauma. They ate the product. Many of them feel that they are responsible for the death of their children. Many of them cannot have children again. There are people who are traumatized. There are people who need counseling, who need help, who need ways to find a way forward.
Yes.
And till now, 6 years on, they haven't received this help. You know, the victims of this corporate crime are overwhelmingly poor people, the kinds of people who eat bologna. You know, you and I might eat steak and chicken and fish. Poor people have relied, historically still do, on polony, cheap polony, processed meats, as a source of protein, which is essential to their diet and their health.
Yeah.
So the overwhelming majority of people, I think 25% of them said, we got our polony by eating kota.
Yes.
What's kota? Well, it's folk food. It's cheap food. It's street food.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest form of protein you can get.
Yeah. Now, how do you work it legally, Richard, with 317 samples, and you've got, as you say, 100 children that you're talking about, 1,000 people that or so that you're representing? How do you then, out of those 300 samples, legally say all of them are affected by this? Is that a difficult process to prove?
No, it's not difficult. So we have about 350 patients with what they call whole genome sequencing. In other words, they've analyzed the DNA, they've proven it's the same DNA. Those people are home and dry, easy to understand. The rest of them, we have something a little less than that. We don't have whole genome sequencing, but what we do have is all of these people ate polony. During the period while Tiger Brands was producing and distributing polony that was contaminated with listeria. Now, normally, we have 20 listeriosis cases per year in a population of 60 million. During this period that we're talking about, 1,500 people at minimum contracted listeriosis. The true number is probably twice that. But 1,500 people got sick. The vast majority of them say, I ate polony, and can say, I bought it at the local spa, I bought it at this shop on the street, I bought a kota, that's where I got it. Now, let's accept that what they're saying is true, that they ate polony. What are the chances? And then they got listeriosis. What are the chances that they got the listeriosis from something else? There are only 20 cases per year. Now, this person eats polony that we know to be contaminated, and they get listeriosis. The likelihood that they got this from the polony is overwhelming, because your chances of getting listeriosis are trivial, 20 out of 60 million per year. And here you got it after eating polony. So even where we don't have the detailed genomic breakdown of the particular bacteria that made these people sick, we know that if they ate polony during this time and they got listeriosis, the probabilities are overwhelming that they got it from that polony, which we know to have been contaminated.
Right.
There was a period of approximately 16 months during which Tiger Brands' enterprise factory in Polokwane was manufacturing and distributing product nationwide that was contaminated.
Right.
We know that now.
Right.
Because we know when the first case took place. The first proven case was in January 2017, the whole genome sequenced case. And we know that they stopped in March 2018 when the factory was closed. During that period, all the food that they were producing was contaminated.
Sure.
They never picked it up over that entire period. They weren't testing for it. They weren't looking for it, even though they knew we're experiencing an outbreak, people are getting sick, it's likely a product that's commonly used, consumed by poor people, and which is nationally distributed. Something like polony.
Sure. Sure.
Despite that knowledge, and despite all the onerous duty they have as a food producer to take care that the food they produce is safe, they didn't pick it up.
Yeah. Now, when we spoke to you, of course, we were looking at the other case that you're looking at, asbestos case. That was another class action lawsuit you were involved in, and we said, okay, you're now taking up this one as well. When you were taking up this one, having experienced the kind of duration that the asbestos case would have taken, did you expect this one to go quicker?
Look, the last 30-odd years, I've done a lot of this kind of litigation. There was asbestos, there was silicosis, the gold miners stuff. We're busy with the coal miners stuff. But there have been many other accidents. There have been big mining accidents. There have been furnace explosions. There have been outbreaks of occupational disease in factories, at mines, at steelworks and the like. All of these things we've been able to settle in the past. We settle them in various ways, and often it's not necessary to go to court. Often it's a case of negotiation, engagement, discussion, and reaching a settlement with a company. It is very unusual that you have a case as strong as this one. And I can't think of a stronger case. I can't think of a set of circumstances. I mean, we've had explosions underground, we've had furnace eruptions, we've had lung disease in mine workers exposed to high levels of dust. All of these are quite challenging technically to prove. I mean, they're good cases. We can agree that they're good. But this case is different. This case is overwhelming. So did I expect it to take 6 years? No, I didn't. I believed that Tiger would recognize, A, that there is no prospect of a successful defense, and B, acknowledge out of a sense of corporate responsibility, social responsibility, that we owe a duty to the victims of this outbreak to say sorry, to admit that what we did was wrong, and to try and make redress and give redress for this kind of thing. Tiger is entitled to fight this case to the bitter end. Tiger is entitled in law to fight this case for the next 6 years. But is that what we expect by the biggest food producer in South Africa? A food producer whose shareholders' fortunes are largely dependent on these very same consumers who they poisoned. Is this how it should be? We had Mark Hayward at the press conference this afternoon. Mark was emphasizing the point. Life Esidimeni, he was drawing parallels between that disaster and this. Life Esidimeni, I think it's 146 people. Here we're talking 200 people who died, 200 stillbirths and miscarriages. In terms of tragedy, it's bigger than Life Esidimeni. And here we are all screaming about government. Government must be accountable. Government must take responsibility. Government should do this. And the corporates are part of that. The corporate world is attacking government for their failure to be accountable and be responsible and do the right thing. Here we have a corporate that is every bit as guilty as the Provincial Department of Health responsible for the Life Esidimeni disaster. Where is the corporate's sense of responsibility? Yeah. They're quick to criticize government. Yeah. They're quick to criticize the culture that appears to have taken root in South Africa of a lack of accountability. Well, here you are.